But while I love my Fords, I must admit that in some cases, they are a bit more challenging to keep running than the GMs of the era. Fords definitely had better body fits and quality and door closures, but in some cases, their overall reliability was a bit more challenged compared to GMs. That said, here's a little bit on some repairs for my 74 Marquis Brougham. So here's a fun one in the history of repairs, working on my 74 Marquis Brougham Hardtop. You can see there's no pillar. I love this car, but in any case, I had a weird issue that I started the car up, was driving it, and it started cutting out on me intermittently. And to the point where it even stalled. It was very weird because it would happen at idle, under acceleration. And I put a timing light on one of the ignition wires while it was misfiring, and it only did it very briefly, and the light wasn't illuminating, which told me that it was likely an ignition issue. Well, it was hard to say because, of course, after it did it that first time, being intermittent, it didn't replicate the issue. So I recalled that a few weeks back, I was unplugging the air conditioning compressor here because it needs to be serviced. It's making a little bit of noise. And I remember unplugging the switch, which is right here, and I just leaned on the coil a little bit, and the car stalled as I was unplugging the air conditioning. Actually, I didn't even know I was leaning on the coil. I just leaned on it a little bit so that I could get some leverage to unplug the one-wire connector, and the car stalled. And I thought, well, that's really weird. Never had a car that stalls when you unplug the air conditioning compressor. And I chalked it up to a fluke, but I shouldn't have. Because later I remembered when the car was stalling that symptom, and I thought, I wonder if the problem is the coil going bad and it's got some internal crack or some issue associated with it. And I also noticed that it did this after I had this thermostat repaired. And usually what happens is there was one of the bolt heads that was broken off, so I don't like fun jobs like that anymore. So I took it to my mechanic. And I'm guessing that he rested his hand there in some cases, just a natural resting place. In some cases where you put your hand to take the air cleaner off or something, you don't think anything of it. I mean, it's metal strap, nothing big. Well, it exacerbated whatever the issue was, because then I had this intermittent issue. I was driving, and the coil ohmed out okay, both the primary and the secondary wirings, but can't really see it on here, but it's got some arcing traces. This is the original coil too. It's hard to denote with, the dirt and everything, but I believe this is the problem. So I put a new coil in, driven it about 20 miles, and it's fine now. So just a little note, sometimes, and by the way, it didn't have as much power as it used to, even when it wasn't missing. So another sign that something in the ignition system is going bad. Usually coils start getting weaker and weaker, and you get less power until the point that they kind of crap out. But this one was getting less power. The car was getting a bit more sluggish. So replaced the coil, driven it about 20 miles, and it runs perfectly. And I think that was the issue. So just something for you to be aware of, to take a look at, especially when you get these original. You can see D4AF. It's a 1974 part number for Mercury. So thought I would share that. And I guess since you're here and it's running, I might as well start it up. Hopefully it doesn't die. That would make a very bad video. Smooth as can be. Sounds great. So these are always the fun intermittent problems that you fix, and then you wonder, kind of stay close to home for the next 20 miles or so to see if the problem recurs. So far it hasn't, so fingers crossed that I fixed it. But you know, the carburetor showed no signs of flooding out. I mean, it runs great, and it's too abrupt of a cut in and out to be a fuel issue. And it was happening not just on throttle apply, but also at idle and deceleration. So likely not a fuel pump issue. And the fuel pump on this car looks relatively new too. So probably not that. So a bit of a process of elimination. Obviously could be the ignition box down there could be bad. The pickup coil in the distributor could be bad if it's ignition. So there's a number of things that it could be. This car does not have points. It has electronic ignition in 1974. One of the reasons why I don't necessarily care for electronic ignition, there's a couple more parts to fail. I don't mind changing out points, but I can diagnose them much more readily. In any case, thanks for watching. Until next time, take care. Maybe do one little brief walk around. Love the front end on this car. Just so masculine. The two Griffins have to have some sort of European icon here if you have a Brougham. Very similar to the Chrysler New Yorker logo during that time period. Not sure who had it first. I'll be getting the radio antenna taken off. It's drilled, unfortunately, so I'm gonna have my body repair guy take that off. So far, I've put new brakes on, flushed the coolant, changed the thermostat in here, replaced the coil, have to rebuild the carburetor. The secondaries are a little sticky. When you get these Autolite 4300s, the secondaries like to stick normally. But one thing to always check is just push down on this. This is the secondary activation, and see how long it takes to close. That's too long. It's gummy. That well is gummy. So it needs to be rebuilt. Otherwise, this is gonna risk backfiring because it'll still be getting air through there. But it runs perfect on the primaries, so. So one trick, if this is sticky, this is just a piston that goes in the bore that's spring loaded. You can spray a bunch of carb cleaner down that hole, and sometimes you'll get lucky and it'll lubricate it. So see how much faster it's closing now? It's basically rising with my finger. So it's definitely better than it was. Just a little tip. You want to make sure that this rises. A lot of times if this carburetor has been sitting for a long time, you'll push on this and it'll go like that and close. That's not good. You don't want that. You want it to close fast, like that. Take your finger off, snap shut. Thanks again for watching this video on my 74 Marquis Brougham. If you enjoyed it, please like, comment, and subscribe, as that helps the YouTube algorithm serve it up to more viewers like you. And if you really liked it, feel free to hit the super thanks button, which is the heart-shaped icon with the $ at the bottom right of your video viewer. Till next time, be sure to check out the video thumbnails at bottom left and right, and you can subscribe by clicking the circular icon of the 67 Buick Riviera at the top left. Thanks again for watching, and until next time, take care.